Hi, I'm Bill Pearis, an editor at Brooklyn Vegan, and you're listening to The Brooklyn Vegan Show, which features conversations with some of our favorite artists. Today, we're talking with Steve Mason, frontman and co-founder of the Beta Band, who are reuniting for their first tour in 20 years. North American dates start October 12th in Vancouver. The Beta Band formed in Scotland in 1996. Mason, along with John McLean, Robin Jones, and Richard Greentree, and they mixed elements of the Manchester rave scene with folk and prog for a unique sound that they had mostly figured out right out of the gate. They're best known for 1998's The Three EPs and its opening track, Dry the Rain, which was famously used in the film High Fidelity. And if you don't remember, this might jog your memory.
I will now sell 5 copies of the 3 EPs by the Beta Band.
Even beyond the 3 EPs, the Beta Band remained wildly creative through their original run, which ended in 2004, not long after the release of their third album, Heroes to Zeros. Even more than on the records, though, the Beta Band were known for their live shows, which mixed inventive DIY projections and lighting with some incredible musicianship. I talked with Steve over Zoom back in July about the upcoming tour, the intentions behind it, the Beta Band's legacy, ending the band owing over £1 million to their label, the dangers of nostalgia and reunions, touring with Radiohead in 2001, the current Oasis reunion, and lots more, including the correct way to pronounce the band's name, which I might already be doing wrong. Steve's a thoughtful, funny guy who still puts art above all else, and it was a blast to talk to him, so I hope you enjoy. Here's my conversation with Steve Mason. Steve, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
I just want to get this out of the way right at the start. You've got a chance to let America know the correct way to pronounce the name of your band.
It's something that's never bothered me, but we say Beta Band, but it's never bothered me, you know. Just I can deal with zucchini, I can deal with oregano. It's not a problem for me.
After saying that, I will probably say Beta Band a few times here, so excuse me. You all were always, for what I thought, a forward-thinking band. You never made the same record twice, and you've been a forward-thinking person in your solo career. What made you want to do the reunion thing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess everything that I've really ever stood for, including the Beta Band, has been anti-looking back, definitely anti-nostalgia. And so to be totally honest, we have been sort of skirting around the edges of doing this for must be close to 10 years. Usually me, I've always said, I don't want to do it. I think I had to sort of mentally get to the point where I felt that I'd done enough. I had things to prove to myself when the band finished. That could I survive outside the Beta Band? Could I still have a career? Was I still kind of not exactly relevant, but would people still be interested in what I had to do? And could I still make records that I was happy with and that I felt were, as you said, moving forward and different enough from the Beta Band and different enough from the previous record that I just made? Over the last sort of two years, I've sort of felt I felt much more at peace with all that, and I thought it was fine. And then, me and Richard had a few hurdles to get over, personal things, and we kind of worked hard at sorting that out. And and then I suppose personally being so much mentally better, it was always kind of John McLean that was instigating these chats, and let's have a look at maybe doing the Beta Band, and we'd have a look at it, and then it would fall apart and blah blah blah. It sort of got to the point where I was running out of reasons to say no, really. I think we all wanted the chance for ourselves, really, to play live and to play these songs without all the myriad of pressures that we had when the band was going. Some of them self-imposed, some of them I imposed on myself, some of them were outward pressures which we didn't have so much control over. I think we owed it to ourselves, really, as a band, to fire up the engines and have a trip that was really for us and was really enjoyable for us, so that we could have a great time playing these songs. And there's no new album to promote. There's no kind of pressure to make a new record. And so, yeah, I suppose I ran out of reasons to stop saying no, really. but it isn't about, for us, certainly, it's not about nostalgia. It's about, I suppose, coming full circle on something that was left in a kind of unpleasant way, and I think we owe it to the music that we made and all that work that we did, and all that artistic pressure that we were under. We owe it to ourselves now to be able to enjoy our work in a kind of more relaxed environment. I mean, there's been zero beta band activity for 20 years. Nothing, not even an online presence as far as I was aware, certainly nothing that I was involved in. There was nothing at all. And so none of us had any clue as to, as it approached and the tickets were going to go on sale. I suppose I suddenly started to think, fuck yeah, what if nobody wants to go? What if it's just some massive ego trip? Anyway, it turns out that there was a huge appetite for it. Talking about the UK, it's just sort of a relentless whirlpool of bad news here at the moment, and it has been for some time, with very little hope on the horizon. And so I think that things like the beta band getting back together and doing some shows, I think in a strange way it kind of gets exaggerated because it's one piece. If you're into that band and you want to go and see them, it's good news. But I think that good news is exaggerated quite a lot because there's so much bad news. So any little tiny piece of good news is sort of blown up quite considerably, which was great to see. People were really excited, really happy, and it really came out of left field. Nobody was expecting it. There was no, up until we did the sort of run of films to announce it, there was nothing at all. There was no hint, there was no talk, there was no nothing at all. So it was great especially in this day and age where everything is so information so freely available. It was great to sort of keep that secret and deliver it in the way that we wanted to do it. Yeah. Not all my answers will be as long-winded as that.
When I saw you play last year at Le Poisson Rouge, when I wrote up a little review for our site, I was like, I hope it won't be as long as the last time since Steve played, having no idea that not only would you be coming back, but it would be the beta band. Yeah. I mean, we at that point, I think we'd had some vague discussions, but it was still nothing had been really solidified at that point. But there was vague discussions, yeah. As far as like the bad news thing goes, you'll be happy to know that it's much sunnier over here in America right now.
That's all I've been hearing.
Yeah. So when did like the official talks happen? When did everybody come on board?
Me and John met up initially, and without going into too much detail, as I said, there was this. Me and Richard just had some kind of personal stuff which we needed to sort out, really. I mean, I'm sure everybody can identify with that. It's just this thing if you just, especially because it's so long ago, 20, we hadn't done anything for 20 years. And that's a long time, man. That's a lifetime. And everyone's lives are so different. Richard himself's got 2 grown-up boys now. I'm married. I have a daughter myself. And everyone's lives are so different. And I suppose part of you feels, not only is it putting you off the idea that you have to have these difficult conversations, but you feel in some way that you have to revisit yourself 20 years ago because you're dealing with things that upset you back then. And so it almost feels like you've got to sort of, in a way, become that person again. And then slowly you think, well, yeah, of course you fucking don't, You have to deal with it now as an adult, as someone that's really a very, very, very different person. And Richard, so I got to learn to a very different person as well. I can't remember what the question was, but has that answered it?
What was like the impetus?
Oh yes,
it all start.
Yeah, so me and Richard had these conversations. Robin was always on board. Robin's always up for an adventure, no matter what the adventure is. If you're looking for a wingman, just look to your right, and Robin is there, ready to go. So that wasn't a problem. John wasn't a problem. Me and Richard sorted it out, and then we kind of met up for the first time as the four of us in London, which was possibly very, very early this year. I mean, it's odd, it is odd, It's weird enough seeing each member separately, but when you're all in the same room, it's really weird. But I think what's also really weird is that I'm sure this has been covered by many other bands who've been in this situation, is how quickly you kind of become a band again.
Fall back into those usual roles.
Yeah, but I suppose it's also different because it is also different. Well, certainly for me, it felt different because I feel like such a different person. And immediately, as soon as we were in the same room, I didn't feel this kind of pressure. It's not pressure that they've created. That's pressure that I created at the time, because it's like, right, we're a band. I felt this enormous weight on my shoulders to carry this thing, to make this thing happen, to make this thing incredible. And I didn't feel that, which was really exciting. It just felt very relaxing. But yeah, it is odd how you kind of, there's this, as soon as the four of you get together, there's like, it develops this fifth personality, which is the personality of the band. A lot of our time together, although, I'm going on and on and on about, how difficult it was at times, but probably 70% of the time, we were just laughing the whole time back in the band time, we had a great sense of humor, and I had really missed that a lot. You can just, and especially now because you're referring back to things that happened all those years ago, and some things you've forgotten, some things you remember, and it's it's interesting. I mean, the dynamic of a band is a fascinating thing anyway. But I suppose 20 years after the fact, it's still pretty fascinating. Just four people coming back together, and what this extra fifth thing that just those four people being in a room together creates. It's an interesting thing.
For music fans of a certain age, it's kind of a magical time. We've got Pulp back, we've got Stereolab back, we've got Oasis back. Oasis were famous fans of the Beta Band, and I feel like Noel Gallagher said that you guys influenced Standing on the Shoulders of Giants for better or worse. Have you gone to one of the Oasis reunion gigs, and were you taking notes?
I won't be going to see Oasis. For me, that does feel like nostalgia, and not really my nostalgia, because they weren't a band that really did a whole lot for me. I think really for me, the Beta Band was about demolishing Britpop. We were there to sort of...
it was you and the Spice Girls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Spice Girls were smashing the male-dominated environment, and we were trying to hack the Union Jack to pieces. So I suppose, but I think my wife's actually going to Wembley on Saturday. Despite all my protestations, I don't think I can stop that happening. So I think she's going to Wembley on Saturday, yeah. But yeah, I mean, that does feel like nostalgia. I mean, and I guess the weird thing about Oasis is that even at the time, to me, it felt like nostalgia. All that sort of, and Blur, and that whole Britpop thing. It just kind of felt like this sort of giant clusterfuck of 60s British, I don't know, nihilism. I don't know, and it wasn't something that I was particularly a fan of. And one of the missions that I felt the band was on was to kind of destroy that. Having said that, I don't include Pulp in any of that. They managed somehow to, from a journalistic point of view, and I'm not saying yourself, but from a journalistic point of view over here, they were very much included in all that. But they were a band that had been going since the very late 70s, early 80s, and they were highly intelligent, highly articulate, and they were always the fly in the Britpop ointment, which I very much enjoyed.
Yeah. When people ask me like how I've come down on the Blur versus Oasis thing, I always say the answer is Pulp.
Yeah. A lot of that stuff passed me by. The Britpop thing wasn't something I was involved in, really.
The Beta Band really kind of existed in a weird time. Your first EP came out in 97, which is when it all started to fall apart for Britpop. And then you broke up right when like the Strokes and Franz Ferdinand and that sort of stuff was happening. And it was like that in between time there was a sort of strange time for music, I felt.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the Britpop thing had run its course. It's really, really, to be honest, it's really hard to remember what was happening back then. But I think also as well, because when you're in a band, you're so focused on making your own music. I just can't remember what the hell was happening. I mean, the last sort of interesting records, and this is not in any way a definitive list, and it's just what I remember. But the last interesting records that I remember being made at that time was probably the Tricky album, the first Tricky album, Portishead, Massive Attack, especially the dub one they did with Mad Professor, which I can't remember the name of. Yeah, that was really great. At that point, it felt really exciting. It still felt really exciting. I guess those records were coming out just before Britpop or right on the edge of Britpop. I can't really remember now. When the Britpop arrived, it felt like someone had just clapped all the drive and all the artistic endeavor in irons and just chained it to a fence post and stopped all that and put everything into reverse. And we attempted to sort of restart that, but I guess we never quite really reached the level. Well, we definitely didn't reach the level of groups like Pulp and Blur and stuff like that. But that's okay. But I don't really remember. I mean, I think I was listening to a lot of American hip hop and R&B,
right?
And a lot of Jamaican dancehall stuff at that time. I don't think I was listening to a lot of British music really, especially around 2000. There was so much fantastic American R&B being made, and for a period there was a bit of a crossover there with Jamaican dancehall, which was really, really interesting. And there was so many great producers in America, Dark Child and Jermaine Dupri and Timbaland and various others. It was a really great time for production at that point. It was really, really interesting. There was some great records being made. So I was really sort of more focused on that, to be honest, rather than the British stuff. But I mean, Radiohead, they were obviously at that point really, really starting to turn into a global kind of act, weren't they, really, I guess.
For sure. You guys were also like one of the last beneficiaries of the crazy major label record deal.
Yeah, definitely.
Which came to bite you in the butt maybe a little bit, right, by the end?
Well, it didn't. I mean, when the band finished, we were, I think, about 1.2, 1.3 million pounds in debt to them. But, that's just such a arbitrary figure. It doesn't, what does it fucking mean, really? It's not like I have to pay that back from the money I'm earning now. That money gets slowly paid back over the next sort of 2,000 years from the tiny little increments of revenue that record sales or however it is they sell music these days generates. I mean, to be honest, I was kind of proud of that, because when we finished, none of us we didn't have fucking anything. We didn't own a house between us. We didn't own a house individually. We didn't own cars. We didn't have anything at all. All that money had gone into the band. Every single fucking penny had gone on art, and so I'm proud of that. I'm absolutely 100% proud of that. That's the way it should be. Take that money and turn it into art, and worry about everything else down the fucking line.
It was sort of maybe the last era of not just like the big major label deal, but being allowing somebody like you guys to really do what you wanted. I'm sure when, after those first 3 EPs and then the success of the compilation and High Fidelity and all that stuff, they probably had high hopes, and you guys just seemed to get weirder.
Yeah, I think that was something that I definitely did not appreciate at the time. I did not appreciate that at the time. I guess partly because we're talking about this in hindsight, and at the time, nobody could really see an end to the money that was being generated. So groups like, on the label that we were on, sort of Parlophone EMI, somebody like Robbie Williams and Kylie Minogue, and obviously bands like Radiohead and Pink Floyd, the money that those groups made was financing us. And you're right. That was the sort of last gasp in a way of, and you can look at this in two different ways, of the kind of glory days of the record industry when they would throw money at a group and continue to throw money at a group. After, I mean, these days it's one album and then you're out. If it doesn't do anything, you're gone. But back then, our A&R man, Miles Leonard, I have to give him credit. I didn't appreciate him at the time, but he stuck with us, and we didn't treat him very well, and we didn't treat anyone at the label very well for a multitude of different reasons. Not just because we're wankers, but for a multitude of different reasons. I certainly felt completely out of my depth. I felt, worried that we were going to be sort of screwed over all the time. So, that sort of fear turned into just being a bit of a dick at times and overcompensating massively. A lot of that money, a lot of that 1.3 million or whatever came from touring support. And touring support is not something that happens anymore. But for people that don't know what that is, basically, if we booked a tour of America like we used to do, in the size of venues that we were playing, and we had all that equipment that we used to take out, all that whole light show, all that crew, we would have come back owing money.
Right.
So what you do is you get the label to pay for all the expenses. What that means is you come back from tour, with no money, but you haven't spent a load of money that you didn't have.
It's all theoretically recoupable, though.
Theoretically, exactly, recoupable. I always tell a story about, unfortunately, I don't remember where it was, but we turned up to some place in America in the middle of fucking nowhere, quite a small town. And at that point, we had an articulated lorry, do you call them semis?
Mm-hmm.
The big lorry with the cab, and then the big fucking thing at the back. Truck, exactly. And 2 tour buses. Wow. And we turned up to this, what was basically a glorified kind of scout hut. I don't know do you guys have scouts over there? They're like
Boy Scouts and stuff?
Yeah, like Boy Scouts. There's like this wooden hut which was sort of just on the edge of town. And it didn't look impressive from the outside, but once you got inside, it was really unimpressive. It was just it was made of wood. And I walked in, and as I walked in, I turned around and the crew were all standing behind me with their mouths sort of on the floor. And the venue when we walked in was probably about 400 capacity. Okay. By the time we'd finished extending the stage to fit all our equipment on, it was probably 250 capacity. So we probably did a, I don't know, $20,000 to $30,000 show that night, and probably walked away with about $200 or $300. And I'm not saying that I would change that, because the amazing thing is, it's a show that always sticks in my head because it was a very dramatic example of how we used to tour. But up until reasonably recently, I still used to get messages from people that had been at that show and told us that we changed that town overnight. We changed that town, and we started a load of bands, and people went off and to become artists and go on various different artistic adventures. And what is that worth? 20 grand? Yeah, it fucking is. It definitely is. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. That's why you do it. So as long as you're spending other people's money, get the splurge gun out, man.
That was your Sex Pistols in Manchester show, right?
I think we actually had quite a few of those type shows, but yeah, that was our American one. Yeah.
Right. You're saying like the pressure and stuff. You sort of famously disavowed your self-titled debut album at the time. You listen to things like Round the Bend and you're like, man, was the pressure really that on, or was that like something that you just sort of inflicted upon yourself? Or
it was kind of both. You can't underestimate the sort of ferociousness of the British music press. Even before we'd put a record out, they were hailing us as, the saviors of this, the saviors of that, all this messianic hogwash. So there's that. But mostly it was me. I didn't go into this lightly. I wanted the Beta Band to change the fucking world. what I wanted was when people heard our music to stop what they were doing, go and hug the person next to them, and begin a life of artistic endeavor. You know, I wanted governments and borders to collapse. I wanted flowers to grow where tarmac once stood. And I wanted, peace on earth. And I wanted to, with the money that we made, I wanted to build a huge, art institute, one in Scotland, one in England, one in America, one in, Africa, one in South America, all the most interesting places, and kind of begin some sort of incredible period of human utopia. And so anything less than that is obviously going to be disappointing. So, and you have to, I think what I've learned to do now, which I couldn't do back then, is just live in the moment, and appreciate what's happening right now. And I couldn't do that then. I just couldn't do it. I was always thinking about the next thing and how it might not go well, how it might be a disaster. And if I don't worry about it enough, if I don't look at every possible angle of how it could go wrong, then it is going to go wrong. It's going to be a giant fuck up. So there was huge amounts of pressure from every possible angle, and I put pressure on the rest of the band. I was put pressure on myself, and it was difficult. Did I answer your question? I can't remember what your question was.
I think so. I was just asking if how high the pressures were, like around the time of that debut album.
Okay. So I think the debut album was the debut. You have to remember, as a songwriter, when we got signed to Parlophone, and we signed to Parlophone, we signed to EMI Publishing at the same time as well. So collectively, they gave us £300,000. And at that point in time, I think I'd written 3 or 4 songs, tops, because a guy called Gordon Anderson, who was kind of, he was like my songwriting partner, who was way more talented than me. And we were supposed to go on this journey together, but for various different reasons, that was not possible. So suddenly I was carrying this whole thing on my back, and it was a hell of a weight to carry. And I hadn't written that many songs, and these people had given us all this money, and I'm just thinking, fuck, if they've given us that much money, what? I couldn't tell anyone that I'd only written 4 songs. I just had to keep telling everyone that I had all these songs up my sleeve and blah, blah, blah. I didn't have any, so I had to really go into the trenches and work hard. So there was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of pressure. And I think that we went into making the first album, the Beta Band album, way too soon. Mm-hmm. I should have taken another 6 months to just get those songs in a much, much, much better position. Because the songs on that album that shouldn't be on it, the songs there's a couple that are amazing, and there's a lot that are not finished. They're just not finished. So we sort of padded things out and blah, blah, blah. So it's a shambles. It is a shambles with moments of fucking genius and moments of incredible beauty. But it's a shambles. Yeah. But and that's, I like a shambles as much as the next human being, but it has to be the correct kind of shambles. And obviously, for me personally, it was a huge disappointment because it wasn't not what I wanted it to be.
So you've softened on the view of the record a little bit since it came out.
Who told you that?
You just did.
No, I think I'm just able to talk a bit more positively about it, but that doesn't mean I've softened. It just means I'm not just relentlessly negative.
Did you go back in prep for this tour to like listen to all your stuff again, and did you have any like revelations about things that you thought were great or the other way around? Or
well, to be honest, all I've listened to is the set list. That's all. I haven't gone back and listened to everything, but there's some songs that with sections in that I'd completely forgotten about. But I think partly because the songs that we didn't play live, I probably haven't listened to since they were recorded. I mean, there's songs like on YouTube, there's like a 10-minute version of B&A of us doing B&A at Glastonbury. And it's obviously really expanded and different from the recorded version. When I, listen to that, you realize, Jesus, I think what's amazing is how we all of us knew exactly what was going on live at the time. There was never really any mistakes. I knew exactly what was coming up next. I knew exactly what to do, where to go, which instrument to play. But now when I watch some of the live footage, I look at it and I think, oh, where am I going now? And then I wander over and I play the xylophone, or I do it and I think, wow, I didn't know that was going to happen. But it's incredible how, I guess you're just so locked into it. That's the thing about being in a band when you're young. You're so locked into it. That's the only thing in your whole life that matters. And it's all you're focused on. And it's incredible what human beings can do when they're just focused on one thing. The amount of brain power and stuff that you can harness when you're so focused is kind of incredible. And it's something that I suppose is quite awe-inspiring 20 years later, looking back. Some of the live stuff is so ambitious, especially things like the hard one live. It's so, when it starts off, I'm thinking, fuck, how, because I hadn't seen us do that live since I played it live. It starts up and you think, Christ, how are we going to do this? And I'm watching this footage unfold and you go, wow. At the end of it, you're just like, fucking hell, hats off, man. That's amazing. It's so ambitious.
I was at the 1999 Bowery Ballroom show. Was that your first ever U.S. show, or had you played L.A. or something?
No, I think we arrived in New York. Yeah.
I had no idea what to expect. There was no YouTube then, I remember the first time you put down the guitar and went over to the second drum kit. I was like, oh my God, and it was a real, these guys are amazing. It was.
Yeah. It was exciting. I think it was really exciting to see people's reactions to all that stuff, because it came, I think the beta band for me, it was a lot of things, but one of the things that I wanted it to be was just this, was like a gigantic act of no fear. So, and what that meant was not caring that you weren't accomplished at something, just being able to pick up any instrument and just get something out of it, get enough out of it that it's of value to put in a song or to play live or whatever it might be. Now, having said that, the drums is my first instrument. So I've been playing drums since I was sort of 11 years old. Guitar and singing is my second instrument. So playing the drums for me, as soon as I get behind that drum kit, it's just for me, it's just for all the weight of the world just disappears. And it's something I can do with my eyes. I mean, literally with my eyes closed and just, I don't even have to look. It just all comes so naturally. And when you have something like that, when you have like that, whatever it is in your life, because a lot of people have one thing that they can do so well, it's an amazing thing to be able to do that. So yeah, it was great. I think it was something that I suppose it never really occurred to us that would be such a big deal. But thinking back now, of course it was. You never see that. Right. You've got your guitar, you've got your guitarist, you've got your bass player, you've got your drummer, you've got your singer. And nobody crosses the streams. And I suppose, looking back, it must have, especially as seeing it for the first time, it must have been quite exciting.
Yeah. Do you have any memories from that show? I remember the summer of 1999 in New York being especially hot.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember it being hot. I remember walking around to see CBGBs, and I think we were just really excited to be in New York. I mean, because I'd been in New York once before, and that was we went over with the Verve when the Verve played at just like a square venue. I think they did 2 nights on their comeback after Urban Hymns was released. Can't remember the name of the venue now. Irving Plaza?
Yeah, Irving Plaza, yep.
Irving Plaza, yeah. So we went over with them just to sort of hang out and stuff. And that was really exciting because we'd been signed, so we had some money. Suddenly we were like these jet set guys going over to New York. And that was really exciting because it wasn't our gig, so we didn't have any pressure. We could just kind of just go crazy. And we had a fucking brilliant night in New York. We were hanging out with Michael Hutchence, and then we did like a shift with these with the guys, the trash guys on the lorries, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did like a couple of blocks with those guys, helping those guys out
Really?
with the bin. Yeah, at like sort of 3 or 4 in the morning.
You were just over? You weren't like opening for the Verve?
No. We were just, because we knew them. They'd helped us out quite a lot early on with various pieces of equipment. And the first gig that we ever did, we didn't have any equipment at all, really. So they lent us a bass amp. Nick McCabe lent me some guitars and an amplifier. And we had Simon Jones's grandma's dining room table had all our percussion and samplers and stuff on it. Okay. Yeah. I don't know how we ended up with that, but we did. So they'd really helped us out. So we went over to them because it was their sort of comeback thing after Urban Hymns and stuff. So we went over, and it was an excuse to sort of spend some of the money that we just got and stuff. So it was exciting, you know. But yeah, I think we were just really excited about. I think personally speaking, I think so many British bands fall into that mistake of thinking that they can tour America like they tour the UK. They can do one tour in the UK, and if the music press are on side, you can potentially, you know, have a top 10 record, you know, and if you do and in sort of 2 years, you could potentially have a number 1 album. And I think a lot of UK bands come back really, really disappointed in America because they have no idea how big it is. Yeah. They don't realize how it works. They don't realize how much work you have to do when you're there in each territory. But I realized that. I knew that. And so we were well up for working our asses off there and playing a lot. And we did a lot of tours in America. And that's one of the reasons I think why we're still remembered over there is because we did a lot of work over there. So I was kind of really keen to get to work. And I think that we also, one of the great things about touring in America is you don't have the British music press. It's just a different thing. The Americans operate in a very different way. I don't think they're always looking to pigeonhole things. You know, I mean, they could obviously, we're a British band, and in America, I guess that's kind of that's a little genre all on its own. But it's quite easy to sort of destroy that in a way if you're good enough. And I think that's another thing that a lot of British bands underestimate is that American bands and artists work really fucking hard at what they do. And usually when they come over here, they're really fucking good. You know, they've got great songs. They've rehearsed the shit out of everything. You know, they're not afraid of working hard. And so when you go over there and you've clearly done a lot of work and you're prepared to put a lot of work in, I think people really appreciate it. And I think that they kind of, they understand and appreciate the fact that you're taking them seriously. You're not just expecting, you know, Americans to roll over, you know, like a guy on his wedding night. You know, you're expecting to do the work. You're expecting to have the conversations. You're expecting to treat them with respect.
Have you started rehearsing yet?
No, we start, I think, in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. You said that you've got the set list all figured out. And not to get into spoiler territory here, but are there songs that you've never played live that you're going to play live on this tour?
I think only one.
Okay.
Yeah.
The little tour announcement video called it An Evening with the Beta Band. Is it no openers for this tour?
Yeah. No openers, yeah. That's the way we used to do it when we started. It was an evening with the Beta Band, so we would DJ before we go on. And then that's the way we always did it in America. We would just DJ before we went on, and then so the whole night feels a lot more special. It's not just a regular show where you have a support band, and you know, nobody generally really wants to see the support band, so it's just something people have got to get through. For the support band, it's not that much fun generally because it's not your crowd. Because it's the Beta Band, we can't find a band that is going to fit with what we do. It's always going to sort of fuck up the vibe of the night. So yeah, we want it to be, you know, all about us.
In addition to just being amazing performers, you guys did some like crazy things with your stage shows. you don't have tour support from Parlophone this time, but also lighting and the whole LED screens has changed so much, and you've got two amazingly accomplished filmmakers in your band. What have you guys got planned? If you can say preview a little bit.
I mean, the interesting thing, as you say, is, I mean, when we were doing those shows in the late 90s, we were running all the visuals off VCRs. We had fucking stacks and stacks of videotapes that we would carry around the world, which now is just hilarious. It's so funny. And we had the screens, and it was all very deeply, deeply, deeply analog. Part of us would... There's an argument for doing it exactly the same, but there's another argument for saying that, well, we only did it like that at the time because that was the height of the technology that was available at the time. Had you been able to do way more, we would have done way more. So your original question really is, how the hell are you going to afford to do what you probably want to do? Mm-hmm. And that, of course, is very, very difficult. These days, we have to make money, because we all have families to support. We can't live collectively in a 4-bedroom house like the Monkees. We can't, have one bath a week. So we do have bills to pay. So yeah, we're still working out the North America side of it.
Okay,
still working out what's possible and what's not possible. I think we're pretty much locked in. It looks to me like we're locked in now for what we want to do with in the UK. But yeah, the American side of it does require quite a bit more thought because of the finance. It's so much more expensive, I mean, even the visas. One thing that, I mean, I toured North America last year, and the visas alone for me and my keyboard player was around $7,000 to $8,000.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, it's fucking nuts. I think for American musicians to come here, I think it's about $200 or $300. And so I know. And if you think that was 2 people, now there's 4 people in the band plus the crew, so it just makes things really, really difficult. Yeah. Unfortunately, needlessly difficult. But yeah, don't worry. We can blow your mind with a Super 8 projector. So don't worry about it.
Cool. You said it's all like nobody wants to see the support act. You guys opened for Radiohead in 2001. What was that like, especially like in North America or wherever, I guess, really?
It was great. It was really good because we'd never supported anyone before. So it wasn't our show. So there's no pressure whatsoever. We assumed nobody knew who the hell we were, but in actual fact, they did, because we were probably a bit bigger than we imagined in America at the time. Plus, High Fidelity had come out, which had quite a big impact on for us. And then Radiohead, I think, had talked a bit about us and stuff. So there was certainly people. There was definitely we got a great response, and it was amazing, really. But yeah, that was a great time. It was something that we enjoyed, and playing to large audiences like that was something that we felt quite at home at. And you were playing. I mean, for the support band, you're playing for 40 minutes every 2 days. So it's not taxing, there's a lot of, just messing around, right. Which we're very good at,
Okay. And finally, are there any bands that you would like to see reform, or you think that deserve another shot at things?
God. Aphrodite's Child?
Okay. That was Vangelis's band? No. Who is that right?
Yeah, it was Vangelis and Demis Roussos.
Well, tricky. There's a little bit of tricky in the Vangelis died a couple years ago.
I think most of the groups that I'd like to see reform have got members missing.
Some amazing drumming with Aphrodite's Child.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think so. For this, partly for the reasons that I've stated. I think that I think it's difficult with some bands, because some bands really represent such a time, and times changed dramatically, you know. And I think that's one of the great things about the Beta Band, going back and listening to the music and starting to get more involved in that world again, is how sort of timeless it feels. Because I think partly because we were artists, and we it wasn't just about the music, it was about so much more. And I think that the art that we created is strangely timeless. I don't know why that is. It certainly wasn't something that I think that you would automatically associate with the 90s. You could associate it with the 60s or the 70s or the 80s or now, you know. So yeah, I don't know. I think to answer that question might leave me looking a bit stupid in relation to my answer to your first question.
All right. And I think with that, that's a perfect place to wrap up. Steve, thanks so much for taking some time out of your day today.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you over here this fall.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're all really looking forward to it.
Thanks again to Steve Mason for talking with us, and be sure to catch the Beta Band on their fall reunion tour. It should be great. They were really one of the best live bands of the era, and I don't imagine that will change now. Their whole catalog is worth revisiting or just checking out for the first time, but I highly recommend their 2001 album Hot Shots 2. I should add that Steve has also released lots of solo albums, including 2023's Brothers and Sisters, which was one of my favorite albums of that year. Meanwhile, you should check out our new podcast, BV Weekly, where my co-workers Dave and Andrew discuss the week's biggest stories, the latest releases, and more. You can also follow Brooklyn Vegan on social media, and if you like this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, write us a review, and tell your friends about it. These things really do help. I'm Bill Pearis. Thanks for listening.